Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Checkpoint Coffee. I'm your host, Mooney, and with me are Mikh'a and Tasin.
Hello.
Hey, folks.
Today, we're coming together to talk about Summer Games Fest 2023, a gaming event that just finished. In case you don't know what it is an annual gaming event that's usually held around June. It began on the 8th of June this year and went on until the 12th. It was streamed online from various sources, and it brought big and small names from gaming, and we got to see a lot of new trailers, a little bit of gameplay here and there, and that is what this episode is going to be about. I'm going to be talking about the games that caught our eye during this Summer Games Fest 2023.
Yeah, for sure, Moni. So I think I will start off with the big one, Starfield. So that's what that's what I'm looking forward to the most, because for me, when you imagine gaming before, you could always kind of conceptualize what the game is in your head. For instance, if you look at some popular games like the next Final Fantasy game, Final Fantasy 16, or Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, you can sort of visualize how the game is going to be in your head. Sort of like if it's Final Fantasy 16, you can say this is an RPG game and it is going to have some JRPG components. The new thing is going to be the combat, and it's going to be sort of combat heavy and stuff. But what's really impressive about Starfield, what really blew me away, was I could not really comprehend the full scale of the game, right? So you have these extremely customizable spaceships, and then you have over 1,000 planets where you can just go and mine for resources, look at these aliens, play Pokemon Snap, sort of with these aliens, have your own farm in these planets. And with all these 1,000 planets, there's also different communities and different societies where you have a huge, an absolutely huge story, right? And yeah, so that's what really gets me excited about Starfield, because it really makes me feel okay, this could be the next big step in video gaming. It has that feel to it. Yeah.
That is a huge compliment to give it, but I think I can get where you're coming from, because when we imagine games, especially games set in space, a lot of us, maybe we see it as, oh man, I want to be let loose in a huge cosmic sandbox where we can have all kinds of fun and do all kinds of interesting things. Some of us might want to be like characters like Han Solo, while other people might want to steal sandwiches, or maybe other people might want to become raiders or something like that, right? So this kind of opens up that avenue, huh?
Yeah, it really does, because you can do all sort of these things in space. If you can be like Han Solo, and you can also play EVE online and join a Starship fleet and whatnot. Yeah.
I know you guys are excited, but I'd say to err on the side of caution. Let's not forget 16 times the detail. It just works. Let's not forget Fallout 76.
That's true.
Some of their games previously have been described as an ocean that is ankle deep. So I hope that this vast cosmos isn't ankle deep either. I really hope so. I mean, they've had enough games to learn, huh?
Yeah, they've had enough time too. This game has been in development for 25 years. So
is that really true?
Including pre-production, this is, I think, 25 years in development.
Wow.
As well.
They said it in the showcase, right? For almost 25 years.
Yeah, they did.
Are they going for some sort of Guinness Book of World Records here? Because that seems like a lot.
Yeah, probably the most it's the most time a game has taken in development, so it better come out polished, very polished.
This has got to be the end game of gaming, or else I'll be very, very suspicious.
Exactly.
If it actually manages to deliver, it will be a huge step in gaming. But I am really, really gonna be one of those people. I'm gonna just wait and see. Just wait and see, boys. Just wait and see.
It's always better to wait and see.
Speaking of keeping an eye, Mikh'a, what about you? Did anything catch your eye?
I think it goes without saying that if there's an RPG on show, it's gonna catch my eye. And wouldn't you know it, we have one of the most well-known RPGs being revealed. Getting a huge chunk of trailer during Summer Games Fest, which is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Now, before any one of you jumps down my throat, I have not played the first game.
You mean remake?
Yes, I have not played Remake. I bought it, it's on my console, but I have not touched it.
Are you saving it to play all at once?
Yes, that was what I was intending to do, but this trailer has actually convinced me to do otherwise. I've started the game, and I'm just past the opening section.
Interesting. Okay, I gotta ask, what about this trailer made you wanna pick up the game? I believe the last time we talked about it, you said that you really wanted to wait until the whole thing was done to play it all together. So what could be so strong to pull you in?
I think it's just the general hype from it. But more than that, during this playthrough, I'm also slowly playing through the original Final Fantasy VII. So it's like comparing the original to the remake. And at the same time, a huge spoiler warning for those of you who still have not played Remake. And I think there might be a fair few of you who might not have for the same reason as me before. There's a really big change in the game, which involves various timelines and a certain someone surviving. So
Yeah.
this aspect is actually what has me excited. I know a lot of people hate Tetsuya Nomura for his Kingdom Hearts stuff, but I love this stuff. So seeing the trailer actually tease you so many things. Tease you like people who are dying, who are not supposed to be dying, people who are in locations where they're not supposed to be. That is one of the main reasons which I actually started playing it.
So the potential for a new story, some kind of twist, like that unexpected future.
Yeah, because even with the original, you kind of never knew what was about to happen. And they've somehow managed to do the same thing with this remake and rebirth.
I think that the original Final Fantasy VII was a really landmark game for Square, for PlayStation, for a lot of fans in the West as well, in putting JRPGs on the map. And a big part of that is just how unconventional the story is compared to a lot of the other video game stories of the time. So I see what you're saying, and I really look forward to discussing all of this with you when you are caught up and, theory crafting, because, oh boy, we've got theories.
Yep, I can already sense it coming.
Yeah. I think what Square is doing, they are going like really big with the Final Fantasy VII franchise. They're actually creating what's known as like a Final Fantasy VII universe, where like they've announced Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, but they've also announced a Final Fantasy VII mobile game, Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis, right? So that's also something that's coming out for the mobile devices.
I want to say something about this, all right? Like, when it comes to Square and Final Fantasy games, especially 7 games on the mobile, I don't think there's a really good track record here, because the last time they announced a game, I think it was called First Soldier or something like that, and it was like a PUBG style game, right? And if I'm not wrong, that game did not last even like more than 1 year before like they decided to just shut the servers and just cut off all support and just basically end the game. So let's see.
The thing about that is, Moni, that mobile game was actually really, really interesting, because it had that like Final Fantasy VII take on PUBG, where you could use the materials, the chocobos, and like you have these maps with like Final Fantasy VII summons like Behemoth and whatnot. It had the potential to be really fun, but I think what the real obstacle to the developers was that people were already too invested in PUBG, which is ironically the same thing that happened to Titanfall 3. So
yeah, I'm glad to hear that the game itself was good, but unless they have a little bit of publisher support as well, I don't think these kind of games live for very long. Mikh'a, you were going to say something?
Well, I was going to say 2 things. First is that I don't really think the Final Fantasy brand actually... It's like a really mismatched marketing right there. The Final Fantasy players aren't the PUBG style players. And about what Taksin was saying earlier about there being a FF7 universe, there actually is already an FF7 universe. What they're doing right now...
Compilation.
Yeah, the whole compilation universe. What they're doing right now is more that they're actually ironing out, cleaning everything out, and putting it all together in a very systemized and organized manner. Because all the stuff that you know from the compilation, the deep ground stuff, Genesis, Weiss, everything is in there. It's all being hinted at and very neatly being put in the background for observant players to pick up on, or sometimes right in front of you, like a VR battle. So if you guys know what I'm talking about.
To put it another way, it's like Final Fantasy was originally meant to be one story, but over time it has expanded, and a lot of these expansions basically kind of are new ideas that they've worked into the lore. So it's not like the lore itself was made to have these ideas, but now it's been kind of streamlined in a way where it seems like everything fits together much better.
Yep.
I am going to say something that neither of you will like, but I'm going to say it.
Mm-hmm.
Can we say we are expecting something like Final Fantasy VII Multiverse of Madness here with some characters coming here and there?
I think they already got that covered with Kingdom Hearts, but okay, so I'm gonna put a very small theory for you. In the ideal scenario, what's gonna happen is that the two timelines are gonna converge, and both parties, which are supposed to die, are gonna meet together, and they're gonna succeed in that one single unified timeline. That is the ideal scenario, not exactly a what were you saying? Multiverse of Madness situation, but something with timelines is happening there, that's for sure.
One thing you can definitely be sure of is with Tetsuya Nomura that we'll be seeing stories that play around with a lot of abstract concept, light, darkness, time, space, hearts, you name it.
The power of friendship.
But I actually don't know how to feel about this Multiverse of Madness. That linear story with the old Final Fantasy VII story, I felt like that had a good closure to it. So when you open this up and you start playing around with the story, I'm a bit confused to how I feel about it, honestly.
There is for sure a lot of financial motivation here, as Final Fantasy VII is something that is a bit of a critical and commercial darling for them. So they want to make this into a thing, right? But beyond that, any one of the Final Fantasy worlds is usually rich enough that you can tell a lot of side stories with its characters, with its past and whatnot. So they just happen to pick the one that really put them on the map. And they're trying to make it into a thing. And they've been trying to make it into a thing for a very long time.
All right, moving on. Mooney, do you have any games that you are interested in from Summer Games Fest?
Yes, we've talked about really big games, so now I'm going to talk about a game that is relatively small in a lot of ways. Prince of Persia: The Last Crown. You guys seen the trailer for that one?
Yep, I've seen it. And I am. Look, like Starfield, I am a bit hesitant on this Prince of Persia because a part of me feels like, you know what, say your piece and then I'll say mine.
All right, I figured that you would have some things to say about it. So here's what drew me to that one. So the Prince of Persia IP has been kind of in limbo since the last couple of games. I believe there was an attempt to reboot it, and then they tried to go back to the original continuity, and it just kind of petered out. So fans of the games were kind of left wondering what would happen to this franchise. Is it dead? Is it gone forever? Have we seen the prince swing his last? And I guess that's one of the reasons why I'm really happy to see this come back in some way, right? The other reason is that I'm a big fan of these side-scrolling, jumping around, Metroidvania kind of games. Now, I think this one looks a lot more like an action platformer than a Metroidvania personally, but still, the idea that you have movement abilities, you have interesting combos, you have like nice bosses that you can fight along with cool moves that kind of move the camera around and all this stuff. I really like that aspect. Now, as for the art style, I found it to look a little bit, I like the effects, right? In the sense that when you attack and stuff, the strike effects and stuff that are there. But I don't think I necessarily like the art design of the characters because it looks a little bit like Valorant or a little bit like Fortnite. Not to say these are bad, but it doesn't really convey, I don't know, ancient adventure as much as like contemporary hip-hop stylings or something of the sort. And I don't know, maybe I'll get used to it, but seeing the game go from the sorry state it was in to something that is so energetic and so kinetic, like in its play and everything, is like, oh my god, it's come back to life. Oh god, I can't wait to play this. Even if it's not the best Prince of Persia, the fact that they reinvented it yet again and it looks great and is just something that makes me want to really dig into this thing to see what it's all about.
In my case, what's happening is exactly as you said. They announced a reboot, and the backlash for the reboot was so bad, they kind of scrapped it. And this is all complete speculation on my end to anyone who's listening. This is all assumptions. I don't have proof of this. But something inside my gut tells me that they've actually taken assets and concepts from the reboot that they were trying to do, and they sort of remodeled it into this side-scroller. And that gives me this feeling that it might not be necessarily the best Prince of Persia we can get. And the funny thing is, we have a really, really good semi-different reboot sort of Prince of Persia with the cel-shaded one, which actually kind of stopped on a cliffhanger.
That's what I'm saying. They don't really believe in that series because of the negative backlash against it. They just kind of let it peter out with a little bit of a handheld game, I think. So that timeline, I think it's safe to say, is pretty dead. But I think you have a point there. This could be reused assets as well. Continue.
The reuse assets is not from that Prince of Persia. I'm going to put this image on screen to anyone who's watching. It's not this one. It's this one, where they actually put in, they try to reboot the original Prince of Persia, the Sands of Time.
I remember writing on this one because this one was kind of noteworthy as it was an Indian studio that was doing the development, but unfortunately this one kind of got cancelled, yeah?
Okay, so I actually wrote on it later. So what really happened was like an Indian studio, like the branch in India, they were working on it in Mumbai. So they were working on it, and what happened was like the project was actually sourced to the Ubisoft Montreal. So what's happening is like Ubisoft Montreal is breaking this project down, and they are going to start from the scratch. And they said there won't be any information on the Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake in the Summer Fest, but we will see an update later this year. So I don't think it's necessarily like cancelled. We may or may not get an update from them later this year about the reboot. So that's where it's at.
Now, Mikh'a, one thing I do want to point out is that Ubisoft does have a few 2D games under its belt, like Rayman, and these people know platforming, you know? So if they could bring some good combat in there, maybe it would be a really fun time.
Yeah, Ubisoft really has like a good amount of games under their belt when it comes to like side-scrolling stuff. Remember, like Child of Light, that was also Ubisoft. So, but a little bit different, but you know.
Yeah, the Child of Light is like a good example of what they could do with a side-scroll RPG. But you guys might also remember the Assassin's Creed side-scroller, which was not very entertaining. But you're right, that's the reason why I'm hesitant, but we have lots of games to discuss, so let's keep going.
All right, so this time I'm gonna take it back to Tasin once again. What is your next pick? Another game that caught your eye?
So the other really good game that caught my eye was not necessarily the game itself, but when the name came out on the screen, Thunder Lotus Studios, these are the guys behind Spiritfarer. So they are making a roguelike co-op game with 33 players can co-op and play online, like called 33 Immortals. What instantly hooked me to the game was like the really good sound design and how beautiful it looked. And 33 players on screen fighting like bosses, and like it's a top-down approach, so it sort of looks like Hades, but it has its own distinctive art style, and it just looks and it like sounded really good. So if it's like the developers of Spiritfarer, then I am like very excited about this game.
33 people sounds really chaotic, though. This is reminding me of Wonderful 101, which was a good game, so I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
I want to say Spiritfarer is a game that's very chill, not very violent or anything like that. We did a review of it some time back as well, right? So to go from that to something this chaotic, that is quite the character journey.
I agree. That's quite different, right? But if they can pull off like a game like Spiritfarer, I think at least in the narration and the sound design, I can, somewhat approach this game with an optimistic approach that, the sound design is going to be good, the art style is going to be good. So the combat we will have to see. But from what I saw on the trailer, but by the way, there's no release date announced yet. But from the trailer, it looks really nice. And like Mikh'a said, 33 people, it must be very chaotic, but it could also be very fun, right?
Oh, yeah. Any multiplayer game is fun if you're playing together with people. But that is quite an intriguing concept, actually. I don't think any AAA studio would have thought of using 33-player co-op.
Only indie games would take these chances.
I guess we will find out how many players is too many players.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna pass the buck off to Mikh'a. Do you have another game that might have caught your attention?
Yeah, of course. I mean, let's continue the RPG train. And this one didn't come in the original Summer Games Fest showcase, but it came in the Capcom showcase, and that is Dragon's Dogma 2.
My God, you're gonna talk about Dragon's Dogma?
Yes. Don't worry. I'm not gonna give it a swan song today. I'm gonna keep it brief.
No, I just wanna let everybody out there know that Mikh'a has been suggesting that I play Dragon's Dogma since its original release on its original console, and I have never said yes until very recently, during which I tried it and I loved it. So he's my number one Dragon's Dogma guy. So if he says anything about it, I'm listening. It's such a fun game.
The original Dragon's Dogma was like really poorly received on its first release, but there were people who really enjoyed the combat, and now it's kind of like a cult classic.
You know, having played the Souls games and then returning to the game actually made it that much more easier to get into, because back in the day, it just felt like, wow, what is this fair, punishing combat? Now I really like that. And there were so many, I would say, features in the game that were genuinely ahead of their time. I never thought we'd get a sequel. So tell us more about it, please.
So what's happening with Dragon's Dogma is that we have what is called a pawn system. It's that you can make a character, and you can also make a second character, your pawn. Think of him or her as an assistant, which you mold, which learns from your actions, and your pawn or assistant can then be traded or go off on their own journey with other players. There's no direct co-op with players, but rather the co-op happens to their pawns. And where Dragon's Dogma shines really is in its combat. If the Souls games are about you overcoming the odds of fighting through punishing battles or uncovering snippets of lore to figure out the story, Dragon's Dogma is like the reverse. This is about empowering the players. When you take control of the class, no matter which class it is, you're gonna feel awesome. Whether you're a sorcerer who's just hurling down combats, whether you're a rogue who's climbing up a ogre and is slashing away at his eye, or even a knight who uses their own sort of magic, it just makes you feel awesome.
I want to say one of the really cool things about Dragon's Dogma that caught my eye when I played it, that you suggested, was the ability to climb monsters. You guys, imagine if you could climb Dark Souls bosses. That's this game. You don't know what you've been missing.
Yep. If any of you haven't played Dragon's Dogma, I can't recommend it enough. And it's really cheap wherever you can get it. So if you haven't tried it, go get it. It's the best way I can advertise it. Just try it and see whether you like it.
It is also really nice for players who like these kind of open world games, because it's kind of open zone, so you can run around there a little bit as well.
I actually have not yet played Dragon's Dogma, so I think I should give it a go.
Yes, you will really enjoy it.
At least give it a go before the release of the second one, because if I know what your preferences, this is gonna be a game that's right up your alley.
Oh, cool. I have not played the original Dragon's Dogma. I just seen like Mikh'a and Zubair talk about like how exciting it is and how revolutionary it is, the combat and etc. But when I saw Dragon's Dogma 2, the trailer, I was like, this has that Game of Thrones vibe, right, Mikh'a? Does it? It has that feel.
I wouldn't call it Game of Thrones, but it's really medieval setting, and there is a very interesting lore behind how it all happens, like clockwork, some would say.
You know, it's a pretty good medieval dark fantasy, right? Which skews more on the side of the medieval, with a lot of knights and kingdoms and such. And I find that it's a really interesting story, interesting game, and the emphasis on story, because like unlike the Souls games where you're picking through the bones of a civilization, here some stuff is happening around you all the time.
Okay.
Yep. Unfortunately, the first game wasn't too good with its presentation, but it really left you thinking, and right at the very end where they just dumped everything. That final set of story is like really intriguing, and they're carrying that concept forward now. Anyhow, I'm still going to continue the RPG train, and I have a feeling I know where the train is going to go on your end, Mooney.
Okay, so yep, just like before, I'm going to talk about a Metroidvania. Surprise. Guys, I think I have a favorite genre. Anyway, this one is not from a big studio. It's actually from a little one. So let's talk about The Last Faith. This one is developed by Kumi Souls Games and published by PlayStack. this one caught my eye because it kind of looked like, what if Blasphemous looked like Bloodborne, right? We're talking beautiful detailed pixel art. We're talking extremely gory combat and like really interesting combo chains, multiple weapons. We have like guns just like in Bloodborne and a lot of this Victorian Gothic aesthetic. And the trailer talked about a lot of complicated lore and deep setting and everything, which was cool, but you kind of expect that with these kind of games. What really drew me in was just how fierce the combat was and how unique the enemy designs looked, you know? Like some of these monsters, I look at them and I'm like, how in the world am I supposed to beat that? Like, what is this thing's weakness? It's not like, oh yeah, that's a vampire, better get the garlic, you know? So I'm really looking forward to this one. It looks gothic, it looks dark, it looks difficult, and it looks like it's going to be a world that's really fun to explore, fight in, and also learn more about.
Oh, that really sounds interesting. When you said like Blasphemous, like instantly very interested about this game, because Blasphemous, what it really did well was it had that, you know, gothic and yet really gory combat, right? And it had that punishing source like formula very like implemented into this Metroidvania that made it feel like its own thing, you know? Yeah.
Yes.
This really sounds like an interesting one.
On top of that, Blasphemous also, I want to point out, is really noteworthy for having fantastic pixel artwork. Like, you look at this stuff and the fact that it's made up of tiny little squares will blow your mind, right? And the story itself was actually pretty deep and involved a lot of religious themes, which I found very interesting. So I hope that The Last Faith can also deliver something that is thought-provoking and interesting in some way that makes us think about some stuff. Because Gothic fantasy is just a really rich area for gaming, and Castlevania has been doing it for years. So it's time for its successors to start stepping up as well. Okay, so now I'm gonna kick it back to Tahsin once again. I think this will be your last big game we talk about. So what's the last thing that caught your eye?
All right, so yeah, I'm also going to talk about, well, it's not really indie at this point, I guess, but we are going to talk about Giant Squid. So we have a trailer for the upcoming game called Sword of the Sea. So I've been a huge fan of this publisher since like Abzu. I know a lot of people really like started with Journey, but back then it was a PlayStation exclusive, so I couldn't access it. It's still on the mobile, right? So what's really good about this publisher is back when Abzu came out, they captured the underwater so well, and it was so mesmerizing with these sound effects and the creatures and how the light filtered through the water, and it was just so good. It actually made me go into the ocean and start snorkeling. So it really impacted my life in a way where it made me want to go out and experience what the real sea was like, right? So if they are going to make another game like Abzu, but you know, surfing, I guess you see this character surfing in different locations, in like sand, in different environments, it's just instantly captures that, you know, just take your controller, sit on the chair, and you know, just chill, just enjoy the experience.
Yeah, well, I know you took it in a very Abzu direction, but for me, it's very reminiscent of Journey. Like the moment they showed the first bit of the trailer, I was like, this looks like Journey. Like the surfing on the sea, not the dunes this time. It reminded me of Journey, just that the company has actually grown much more bolder than their previous ones.
Yeah, exactly. It seems like they are going to the next step. What if we combine Journey and Abzu together and like make this character just, you know, you go in all these environments and these beautiful environments, the dunes, the ocean and whatnot. It also looks like there are some creatures involved. We, you know, maybe boss fights, but we don't know anything yet at this point, right? Looks very interesting though.
Well, I haven't managed to check out this trailer yet, but I did play some of the games that you guys are mentioning, and if this game is anything like that, I am definitely interested to check it out as well.
Yeah, so like that's the other game on my list because I'm a huge fan of Abzu and I can't wait to see what the publisher comes up with next. But let's move on with the RPG train. Mikh'a, what's on your list?
Yeah, what's the last stop of the RPG train?
You know, I'm gonna delay that for a bit. Instead, I'm gonna change the genre a bit here and bring everyone's favorite Soulsborne content here. And what I'm talking about is, of course, Lies of P. If you guys haven't seen us, if you haven't seen Taksin raging at a certain boss, then you're missing out. And if you haven't picked it up already, Lies of P got a demo, and it is like every Bloodborne fan's dream come true. Like it's not Bloodborne 2. We're not there yet. From Soft, if you're listening, please give us Bloodborne 2. But for now, if you're looking for a Bloodborne experience that is not 2D, that is very similar to the original Lies of P delivers, it's kind of like a pseudo-twisted take on Pinocchio, hence the P.
Of all things.
But I think I should let Taksin actually go with this a bit. How was the Lies of P demo?
Okay, so you guys will know, like if there's a demo coming out for a game, I usually download it and I play it, right? So I've played some demos over the year, and well, I gotta tell you, like Lies of P demo is the best demo I've played in a video game so far. I expected the game, like the demo, to stop after the first real boss encounter, but it just kept going. It's like, here you have 2 chapters of content. Just explore, play the game. Everything is there. Like the combat is so good and it's so customizable. Like how you play, like the armor, like not the armor, the weapon. Like you have usually like one standard build, right? You can start with like the balance build, the strength build and whatnot, but you can change it up in so many ways as you play along, and the enemies are just so good. The combat is very responsive and the graphics just is so gorgeous. The game is very polished. Like I can't wait to play the full game. I just can't. It's so good.
I'm taking a bit of contention with the best demo part.
Final Fantasy 16, right? Final Fantasy 16.
Yes. But yes, you're right. Even taking that apart, Lies of P is like amazing. It's the Bloodborne experience that everyone's been waiting for.
I agree.
Speaking of which, I do have one question about Lies of P and its presentation of story, Tahsin. Do you think that the cutscenes and stuff are like explaining enough? Do you think that the story is like an active story where you're taking part? Or do you think that it's more like Souls, where everything has already happened and you're just discovering what has happened?
See, the thing about that is that you are actually taking part in the story from the very get-go, right? Because there is this overarching like narrative where you are essentially a puppet, and there's like these principles of what a puppet can do and can't do, right? But it's a bit muddled when it comes to the main character, because he is able to do things that are outside of what a puppet can usually do. And the story seems to be unfolding as, he goes along. He has to meet certain people who will make some big contributions to the story. So I feel like it's a bit more active when it comes to the storytelling perspective of the game. But I have not really played the demo enough to really comment on this fully. From my experience, this is how I feel about the story. Mikh'a, what do you think?
I actually kind of feel the opposite way. Well, you do play a central role in it. It seems like you're actually coming in after much of the aftermath has happened. And you're kind of trying to figure out your place in it as well. Like, you are central to it, but everything is already kind of gone to hell in a haystack, so to speak.
So it's already happened, like the revolution is already underway, but you are also like doing something much later on, right? That's how you feel about it.
Yeah, I feel it's more like the Soulsborne experience, where we just come in after everything has happened.
I see. I just wanted to check it out because both of those storytelling styles are really fun, so I just wanted to have an idea of what we might be getting. Now, where does the Metroidvania train end? It's my turn, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so good news, folks. There's more to talk about. This one is going to be Cookie Cutter. It seems to be developed by Subcult Joint Limited and published by Rogue Games Inc. Now, this one looks to be like a futuristic cyberpunk dystopian kind of game in the Metroidvania style. A lot of cartoony art, and the thing that really caught my eye here was a lot of varied boss designs, interesting movesets, the ability to change between weapons and A lot of the animations look really, really fluid. The voice acting seems really cool. The story seems to be some sort of revenge plot, which, could be interesting. And there also seems to be a lot of like cyborg and mechanical kind of vibes going on here. So I figured that it would allow for a lot of customization. Overall, it looks like a really punk rock Metroidvania, and that excites me.
I can tell you one thing after taking a look at the trailer. It's definitely not cookie cutter usual stuff. The animation looks amazing. You're seeing the footage now if anyone's watching this. And if you're not watching it, go watch the trailer for cookie cutter.
It sounds great. The music, I think, really hits hard. The voice acting, like I said, was really good as well. And it's just the way the characters move and how they fight. I feel like this is going to be a really fluid, fun game to play, really fast-paced. And looking forward to seeing what some of the tougher bosses are going to be like. Some of the designs that were showcased here also were incredibly grotesque and eye-catching, I guess. So I'm really excited to see what this world is about and how everything fits together.
This really reminds me of, there's a fighting game called Skullgirls. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of it.
Oh yeah, that's true. It does have that kind of look to it. So if you are a fan of Skullgirls, maybe you'll like this one.
Oh, so I'm actually not someone who's played too many Metroidvania games, but this is from your description and from the trailer. This is actually something that I may want to check it out because it looks really good. Like you said, it looks really incredible.
I hope you enjoy it, and I would love to hear your experience with Metroidvania the day you decide to dip your toes in. It's a very fun genre. Now, before we conclude, there are still a few honorable mentions to go through, but there were two members of the team who couldn't be with us today, right? That would be Iham and Thunder Toys. So I have a little bit of write-up from Iham here that I'm going to read, and I think Tahsin has a write-up from Thunder Toys, a game that he wants you to mention, right? So let me do mine first, and then we'll see what Thunder Toys has to say. Now, in Iham's words, a game that I'm looking forward to a lot is 2017. Is the sequel to 2017's Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. I'm looking forward to seeing how they're going to make improvements in the way of the gameplay and the combat, the audio design, and especially in the portrayal of psychosis. I'm really looking forward to seeing another stellar performance by Marlene Jurgens as Senua. Every teaser they're revealing is making me more excited about the game. Using MetaHuman Animator in Unreal Engine 5 tech demo showed how much the graphics had improved in terms of facial animation. In this game, facial expressions are very important, so it's really nice to see. Recent trailers showed how much graphically the game has been improved upon, and despite me being a PlayStation gamer, this is the one game that has convinced me to buy Game Pass just to play it. And that is what Iham has to say.
So I'm not sure if you guys have played the original Senua. It's a very interesting experience. You're playing a character who's kind of undergoing psychosis, and they did their homework on actually bringing that to the gaming stream. So I have this 3D headset. It's like a very surreal experience to hear voices from all around you. I kind of share Iham's anticipation on seeing where Senua goes.
Yeah, I agree, Mikh'a. Even from the Xbox trailer showcase, what really grabbed my attention was if you're wearing headsets, right? The sound design is really good. Where when the voices start talking to you, it really starts coming from multiple directions, and it feels like there are multiple people in multiple angles talking to you, right? And what's really impressive about this trailer is that it showcased just how dynamic the environment can be when they want to, showcase it in a sort of unreal, like a dream state environment. I would say it looks very good.
When she's undergoing her hallucinations, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that Senua's Sacrifice was really known for was its portrayal of mental health. We've also had an article being written by Iham about it, linked in the description. Anyway, I found that the amount of research they did and how they managed to portray it in the game also makes a really fascinating case for how games can be used to develop empathy among people for experiences they might perhaps not experience in real life that other people might have to live with, but by having it in a safe way, like in a video game, you get to kind of somewhat approximate how difficult it might be, and perhaps it'll develop some more empathy and understanding of what some people might be going through.
Yeah, I think games as a medium might actually be one of the best to bring forward topics like these. You actually get an idea of what it might feel like to experience such things.
You're right. So Tasin, I believe you have a few words from our friend Thunder Toys.
Yeah, so all he said was Spider-Man 2. So that's all he said.
I mean, that's all he needs to say. Spider-Man 2.
Let's elaborate. For those who are not in the know, Spider-Man 2 is the highly anticipated sequel to Insomniac's Spider-Man game, which came out on the PlayStation 4 and then later on the PlayStation 5. So, how are we feeling about this one?
So I'm actually not the correct person to talk about this game because I have not really played. Oh man, I'll admit I have not played Spider-Man because I didn't own a PS5 or PS4 console at the time. But since it's on Steam, I will eventually play it for Spider-Man 2. Yes, I will. And Mikh'a, I think you are a better person to talk about Spider-Man than I am. So please go on.
The original Spider-Man was like, if Batman, the Arkham series was like the game that put like superhero games into an acceptable state, then Spider-Man 2 is a game that actually took it to the next level. Like it showed us that yes, you can make another superhero that is not Batman, that has different powers, equally as intriguing and fun to play, along with a really good environment and story and a really good support team. If you played it on PC, you know the initial problems were patched out like really quickly. In the words of like, I think it might be kind of generic at the moment, it makes you feel like Spider-Man.
Wait, Mikh'a, you are telling me this is one of the games that I could play on PC without any performance issues? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you should be able to.
What?
At the very least, it has a very robust PC options.
That's really impressive. That really hooked me in. Okay, now it's on the list for sure.
Speaking of feeling like Spider-Man, I want to talk about the original a little bit before we talk a little bit about what might be coming ahead of us, right? Now, feeling like Spider-Man was something the original game achieved on more than one front, I think. One of them being mechanical, where you're swinging around the city and you're fighting supervillains and all that stuff. Yeah, sure, you get to feel like Spider-Man. You got the spider sense, you have all the webs and all that. But there's also the story where you get to see Peter Parker make some real tough choices where he has to decide between his own goals or the protection of others, very difficult situations. And that also is a big part of the Spider-Man experience. So people who are fans of the comics, people who really like the movies, people who might like that one Spider-Man game from PS1, everybody seems to really agree that this seems to be a really lovingly crafted and authentic presentation of the character and what he's about, right? This is one of the big reasons why people were so highly anticipating Spider-Man 2, right? And in between Spider-Man 1 and 2, we've got Spider-Man Miles Morales, which is like its own DLC expansion, you can say, right? And that gave us the character of Miles and got to establishing what he's about. And now with the new game coming, I'm expecting both of these characters to play some integral role in the story. We might also be getting a certain symbiote coming in, I'm thinking, looking at the trailer, and that can always end well, right? So I'm excited for this one.
So interestingly enough, I believe they said that this is not who is it?
Eddie. It's not Eddie.
Yeah, it's not Eddie's symbiote.
Oh yeah, it's not. Oh my god, who could it be? Okay, my money's on Flash, all right? I'm just going to say this is Flash Thompson's big video game entrance. That's what I'm going to bet on.
What's interesting is that the sequel is actually taking the growth that we saw in Peter and kind of tearing it all down with the symbiote suit. So it's going to be interesting now that he has a apprentice or someone who looks up to him in the case of Miles. And then he's also struggling with his own things and the symbiote is kind of showing why. So it looks to be like another very interesting take, like a good take on the Spider-Man mythos. And we've had plenty of those with the recent movies and everything.
I've always said that if Spider-Man isn't having a hard time in some corner of his life, that's not Spider-Man.
That's I think why a lot of people can relate to Spider-Man more, because he's more human compared to a lot of other superheroes, I guess. Because even when you look at Miles, like he's struggling with school, he's struggling with friendships, and even Peter, he's struggling with maintaining his relationship, while doing his job as Spider-Man. I think that's always like a very core aspect of being, Spider-Man.
And yes, that is another thing, right? On top of constantly having to face all kinds of troubles, he also keeps stepping up to the plate to try to help people because he has the power to do so, and it's the right thing to do so. A very inspirational character. And I'm really glad that we're getting some good Spider-Man games again, because for a while there, I felt like we were in trouble.
Yeah, good to see like at least like one superhero, one superhero game really living up to the expectations and constantly delivering.
I get the feeling you might be referring to a certain Suicide Squad here.
Not just that. We've recently had the Batman game too, right?
Gotham Knights.
Gotham Knights, yeah, there we go.
Oh yeah, I completely I tossed it out of my mind. I don't remember it. It does not exist.
It shouldn't exist.
Superheroes would make for great video games, but that I feel like is a podcast topic for another day. But for now, do we have time for a speed round of announcements worth mentioning before we wrap things up? Mikh'a, you got anything?
Yep, I have plenty of stuff. If we're referring to the Capcom showcase, they showed three main games, and Dragon's Dogma I already mentioned. But Ghost Trick, if you guys haven't played it on the DS, it's like a really good puzzle game. Exoprimal, looking really generic looter shooter. But there's a part of me that's like, I might want to try and pick this up. Now, if you're looking at the other announcements during Summer Game Fest, we have, of course, Sonic Superstars, which is sort of a remake of the original, I think. Or at least that's no, I don't think it's a remake of the original, but it's kind of like a brand new side-scrolling one for Sonic. And then we got two new games for Like a Dragon, The Man with No Name, and the one that was announced at the Xbox showcase. And continuing on that, it's not stopping here. We got Sandland from Akira Toriyama. If you guys haven't read the manga, I recommend. It's like really, really good. So I'm kind of excited to see it actually being adapted into a game. And of course, one of the last ones which I'm going to mention here is Banishers, which has a very Witcher feel. I'm kind of taken aback because we've been shown like a morality system of sorts, and I'm generally not in favor of this the Paragon and Renegade stuff from Mass Effect when it's kind of going that route, but we'll see. But yeah, that's all on my end in case you guys have anything more to mention.
All right, I have one game I want to mention. This one is not a Metroidvania, but it starts with the letter M. Mortal Kombat 1.
Ah, yes, of course.
Not to be confused with the first Mortal Kombat, which came out in 1992. This game seems to be a kind of soft reboot / continuation of this unfolding new timeline story where, surprise you guys, Liu Kang is the new Raiden. And Raiden is just a guy. And I mean, not just a guy, but he's immortal, and there seems to be an unfolding story of another world invading and Mortal Kombat happening. So I suppose ultimately the message is, where there are mortals, there will be combat. One.
Yes, it looks like they are sort of rebooting the story and the franchise, right?
Rather than rebooting, it's like a continuation from Mortal Kombat 11, because at the end of 11. Liu Kang kind of creates this alternative world where he's the fire god, and that's kind of what we're seeing now, like everything's this new dimension where everything's changed. Also, if you guys don't mind, I completely forgot about this, but I have to add these into the list. Persona. We got lots of Persona announcements. Persona 3 Reload, Persona 5 Tactics, which came out of nowhere because we already had the mobile game. And we also have one more game by the Persona creators, Metaphor. So all games which I'm kind of excited for.
The last one might be a new IP, right?
It is a new IP.
Excellent. Always very nice to see those come out.
Yeah. I also have actually several games that I'm excited for, but which didn't make the list. I'll start with something that should have been on the list actually. Alan Wake 2 is coming this year, so it's...
Oh my god, you're right. How could I forget?
Remedy is finally...
My boy Alan Wake, finally
awake.
Free from wherever.
Yeah, hopefully so. It looks really like confusing. There's like this new character, and it looks like you can swap between Alan Wake and the new character that they're introducing. But finally, we are getting Alan Wake 2. So there's Alan Wake, and one other game I'm excited for is Never. This is the same publishers who've made Gris. So Gris is also a really artistic, beautiful game about emotional turmoil, overcoming certain like emotional stuff, but it had that punch to it. It could really tell that story without delivering a single line, right? It was a very artistic video game in a way that really expressed these emotions with these beautiful colors, with this artistic design. And it's at the time, it was one of the most beautiful games on the Nintendo Switch, right? It could still be. So I am very excited to see what their next project is about. So we didn't really get to see much. It's just a little bit of teaser trailer. It's called Never. I am very excited to play this game. So when it comes out.
Okay, last but certainly not least, we also saw some sort of confirmation for Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater, a remake. How are we feeling about this one?
So this is actually one of the trailers that got me completely off guard. I was not expecting the Metal Gear 3 announcement. And it, like, the moment you hear like the theme song come in, you're like, oh man, like
They did it.
it's such a punch, yeah, such a nostalgia punch. It was like so good, but I am very excited for the game. I can't say like I have my doubts because first of all, like Hideo Kojima is not involved, like a lot of key members are not there, and this is an entirely new team, and they're calling Metal Gear Solid Triangle, which is Metal Gear Solid Delta. So I don't know, but what do you think, Mikh'a?
I always say this, but I'm more a fan of Solid than Snake Eater. But it would be nice to see something after MGS3, like going back to the roots of Snake Eater would be like a really nice thing. And like you, because we didn't see any gameplay, I'm also kind of skeptical, but that's generally me. Like I've been skeptical of everything that's been announced during Summer Game Fest.
All right, when it comes to me and Metal Gear and what should happen to it, I feel like Metal Gear and Kojima are very closely tied together, but at the same time, during the development of MGS2 and 3 and also 4, the guy has tried to pass the franchise on to other directors, has tried to get other voices in there, right? And when he left, the game we got was Metal Gear Survive, which was not really that good, and a lot of people didn't really enjoy it. It seemed like a cash grab, right? But if we were to get the same kind of budget and support from Konami with a different director to take on the Metal Gear franchise, I'm a little bit interested to see where it would go. And if this new title is what gets people to talk about Metal Gear more actively again, perhaps it could lead to more games where they don't have to do remakes and they can just do something interesting.
Well,
I remember playing Metal Gear Rising and I really love that game. So obviously Metal Gear has more to offer than Solid and his story. So maybe this could be the doorway to that. What do you guys think about
it
this?
does have more to offer. Like Mori, now that you've mentioned it, we've actually completely forgot the best and the most solid remake of the Metal Gear franchise. We completely forgot Metal Gear Snake Eater Pachinko Edition. The Pachinko Edition. This is why I am very skeptical, because it's Konami, man. I mean, they can just do anything, right?
Capcom has kind of made a resurfacing back, so maybe Konami can do the same. Maybe they look at Capcom and like, these guys are doing it right. Maybe we should follow them.
Yeah, a lot of the time with this market, you get to see copycats, right? So if these people see Capcom reviving their old titles with like lovingly made remakes, perhaps it would be enough to convince them to try the same. Where is my Grey Fox game, basically, is what I'm saying. I want my Cyborg Ninja game. Konami, I know you have that game in you.
They have it somewhere shelved in the, future Pachinko game
projects. On that note, we have arrived at the end of our podcast. I think we've managed to discuss a lot of Summer Games Fest 2023, and I'm pretty tapped out. What about you guys?
Yep, now all we do is wait. And we have quite a few things to keep us occupied these days.
Yeah, this I've always keep saying this in podcasts and in like streams, but this is an absolute insane year for video games. Like Mikh'a said, we already have like a lot of good, really great games that keeps us busy. We have Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, we have Diablo 4, we have Resident Evil 4, we have Final Fantasy 16, like all these titles, and there's still more coming later this year, like Alan Wake, we have Starfield, like, oh man, video gaming, am I right?
It feels like what COVID did to slow down gaming is just now resurging really fast.
So many games, not enough time. It's so little time we have for it that I'm actually playing Zelda right now as we do our podcast.
My goodness. Okay. Well, in any case, on that note, let's let the man go play Zelda. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.
That's gonna be it for this episode of Checkpoint Coffee. Thanks for listening, folks. Give us a like and subscribe if you're listening to us on YouTube. We'll meet you again next month for more gaming and pop culture reviews and discussions.